Whoa! I didn't see you there! You're probably wondering why I'm skipping around like an idiot. Well, I'm just in a joyful mood after reading up on all those other idiots copping 2-week vacations and being sent straight to the Shadow Realm. But with that said, seeing now that Runelite stands as the most prominent client for plugins, everyone's going back to it. Runelite has also upgraded some of their plugins such as Entry Swapper and Entity Hider, and a lot of developer plugins are now being placed on the plugin hub. With that said, I think now's a great time to talk about useful plugins you can get on the plugin hub, as well as plugins that are already installed on default Runelite that you should start using. First up, Chambers of Xeric plugins. The first one we'll go over is CoX Additions by Buchus. This plugin contains an instant timer for starting Tecton on tick easier in CMs, a left-click leave CC button, the option to set a hotkey for changing your left-click for the chamber's storage unit whenever holding said hotkey, a prayer enhanced timer, which is useful for redemption method against Vespula and solo CMs, a working Vanguard HP info box, which displays Vanguard HP, and a highlight plugin to show where Ohm will pop up. There are some other functionalities for prep and indicating NPCs too. Another useful plugin is CoX Timers and Additions by D0, which includes the following plugins: CoX Thieving, excellent for estimating the progress of thieving in teams; CoX Vanguards, providing highlights and displaying the HP on each Vanguard. However, the data box in this plugin doesn't work sadly, so you have to use a data box from the other one. And lastly, CoX Timers to track how fast you're going. Thirdly, the Bean Overload, aka Better Overload by Aurelify. It accurately tracks your overload timer even when the world freezes, and it also goes green on the final tick you can brew on, which is good when trying to learn how to brew and maintain your 120s. There's also a crab stun timer by Ankou, which allows you to estimate how long until your crab unsmashes, which is mostly helpful in solos. And last, the Raid Reloader by Trevor, which can help you pre-scout more raids based on the layout. Up next, ToB Plugins. ToB QoL by Damen is the first plugin. This plugin has a lot of useful data and visual modifiers. At Maiden and Verzik, you can set HP to display on red crabs. At Bloat, you can hide the chains in the room for more visibility. At Nihilo, you can hide pillars and select which Nihilo to highlight, as well as options for other NPC menu highlights. You can also flick on an instance timer for Nihilo, Soat, and Zarpus. At Soat, you can swap out the Mage and Range projectile and change them to Inferno block projectiles, and you can get rid of the white screen too. Zarpus, you can add a sheesh, as well as mute the hard mode ToB acid splat. And for Verzik, you can tile mark for tornadoes during her enrage phase to show their true location. You can also mute her P2 sounds. There's also an option to customize the buy options at the chest too, for your left clicking needs. After a raid, you can also have it remind you to loot your chest just in case you forget. Up next is the Godbook plugin from InfernoStats. This is more of a plugin geared towards speedrunners, as Godbook is a method used to spam more Dawnbringer specs into Verzik P1, but it's still nice to mention it. Thirdly, let's show some love to the Crystalline Clifford we all adore and or despise. The Gauntlet from Arduda is a plugin that gives you a lot of customization as for what to highlight, allowing you to track how many shards, resources, and fish you want to get. Also, there's some handy highlights for NPCs and for the tornadoes at Hunlef. Hunlef Helper by Lozput brings Perp's voice to aid you in battle. Although you need to manually start it, you'll hear Perp count down when to swap prayer. If you do get stomped, make sure to click the stomp button to keep your thing on track. Up next, let's look at plugins focused on menu entry swaps or PvM essentials. So, you've heard me mention MES before, but to keep it simple, these are ways to customize your left clicks, shift clicks, or even no clicks on items or NPCs you don't want to touch. Firstly, let's go into Entity Hider. Ah yes, they added the option to hide NPCs on death. Although you can't customize if you don't want to hide all NPCs, it's still really useful for lots of content in the game. Secondly, let's look at the built-in menu entry swapper. You can adjust the click options for a variety of objects, NPCs, as well as even adjusting your bank withdrawal and deposit options while holding shift, which carry over to the storage unit in Chambers of Xeric. I use it all the time whenever I prep. There's also options to turn on the ability to customize shift click or left click for NPCs, objects, wood equipment, equipment in your inventory, etc, 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 to To adjust those options, hold shift and right click an item and see what options it gives you, but be warned that some things may not have options. There is also Hotkeyable Menu Swapper by Gher, allowing you to utilize more keybinds for entry swaps, and a Menu Swapper Extended by Rainy, which, you guessed it, gives you more options for swaps. The only swap I use from this plugin is the Spellbook Swap one, making your SV swap a one-click. The Ground Item built-in plugin can help with highlighting items and item deprioritizing if you check that option on, allowing for you to blacklist items you don't intend to pick up, which just means you have to right-click them to grab them instead of left-clicking. You can add items to a list easily when it's on the ground by holding Alt and hitting the minus key, or doing the opposite or the plus symbol to reprioritize it. That or just manually entering it in one of the lists. And lastly, built-in anti-drag is a great plugin for those who drag a lot during switches, such as myself. The setting also carries over in banks, such as the private storage in chambers, so you can safely withdraw items without dragging them and not actually pulling them out. Next, we shall look at some party and boosting plugins, which are plugins designed to give you info more efficiently for things such as defense, health, and so forth. The party plugin is a default plugin in Runelite, which also got updated. Its performance improved drastically, and party creation or joining has also been made much easier and consistent. An easy way of making a party is just hitting join and putting a short custom password. With it, you can track your team's bench status, health, run energy, spec, and so forth. All this information is presented on top of players in your party. Also, as long as everyone on the team has special attack counter turned on, which is a built-in plugin, you can track all the special attacks you and your team have landed. The next plugin we're going to be talking about is the Hub Party Panel by the Stone Turtle. This pushes things a bit further, giving you the ability to see said information via side panel instead of solely on a player, and you can even look at the inventory of other players. However, this requires your partners to also have this plugin installed. Party Health Status by One Defense is another plugin you can use to better visually present the health status of players in a party, highlighting them based on their HP. This is especially good for when you need to heal other people when boosting. DPS Counter, which is built in, is a really useful plugin for boosting too, as it displays the damage done by all party members. And if you want a specific person to get the kill, you can bring down the DPS of the other accounts. Next up is Party Defense Tracker by Buchus, which was added to the plugin hub recently. After sending a special attack, it will accurately calculate the defense of bosses you commonly would drop the defense of, such as Tecton, Alm Left Hand, Maiden, and Zarpus, just to name a few. It'll display the defense in a small overlay, but just remember that everyone needs to be in the party with this plugin enabled if you want to be able to see the accurate defense. World Cycle by One Defense is another useful plugin, allowing you to set what worlds you want to hop to whenever you press a hotkey. It's a pretty handy plugin for boosting since you can hop between a set amount of worlds, for God Wars as an example. And last but not least, there's Bossing Info by Mr. Nice 98, which is great for tracking your boss kills per hour as well as even setting boss goals as well. Next up, let's talk about some more generalized PvM plugins usable in many places. Customizable XP Drops by L2 Dash is a plugin that gives you more customization options for your XP drops. It also gives you an option to display your hit based on your XP drop, and the option to adjust it based on XP multipliers too. Better God Wars Overlay by Denchi replaces the normal essence counter with a more customizable one, allowing you to change colors or even hide the other boss essence counts. NPC ID by XRio is a plugin that lets you find NPC IDs, which is useful for finding IDs to enter in for certain plugin lists. Radius Marker by Screzzo lets you create custom AoE markers for NPCs. This is useful for knowing Nex's attack range in Phase 2, and can even be used to mark the explosion radius for crabs adversity. Just keep in mind that you have to input the size of a radius yourself. Monster Menu HP by Ankou allows you to see the HP percentages within the menu, which can help you in deciding what NPCs to target in a few instances. Monster HP Percentage by LeJeff, on the other hand, also displays HP percentage, but instead places it on top of the NPC instead of just in the menu. Visual Metronome by Vincent0955 is incredibly strong, so I'm unsure if it'll see changes in the future. But as of now, you can set custom tick cycles ranging from 2 to 10. You can have it display as an overlay with a number on it, and as a true tile as well. To name a few instances it can help you maintain your chop cycles at Mudadal or Ice, and even help you with tanking on Verzik P3 if you set it to 7 ticks. Phoenix Jingle by Nope1252 lets you play a sound whenever your Phoenix necklace breaks. Super helpful for knowing when it breaks when you're using them at bloat. Loading Lines by D0. This displays lines that once you cross will proc a loading line please wait. Helpful in places such as CoX where you wouldn't want to cross the line right before needing to do an action. And lastly, InfernoStats by InfernoStats is a useful plugin for tracking and saving your wave splits and times in the Inferno, as well as information about each wave such as idle ticks in the wave, damage taken, and you even have an option to look back at the wave spawns where you can study more on a wave you struggled on. Up next are some plugins that are useful when swapping from content to content or from role to role. Plugins which save data. Bank Tab Layouts by Gahur is an extension to the original Bank Tab plugin, allowing you to save what you're wearing and will organize it in a way where your worn items come first, then the rest of your items come next. You can also move items around without screwing up your normal bank layout. Next is Inventory Setups by DillyDill123, which you can use to save your setups or even use it as a checklist to see if your inventory, spellbook, and war items are all correct. And last but not least, a huge favorite of mine is Plugin Presets by Antero111. This saves your current plugin options, including what you have down in option lists, or even different colors, settings, etc. Very handy if you have specific plugins on or off during specific activities, or different settings. Now lastly, I'll be talking about some more niche plugins I've made use of. All of these are built-in plugins as well. Note lets you have a notepad open on the side. For me, this lets me track my notes for prepping in TM5s and where to teleport for specific Wildy Slayer tasks. Ultimately, you can choose what info you want to have on the spot. The report button can be set to display in ticks, which helps me with tracking my cycle at the start of chopping the meat tree at Mudadal or chopping at Ice Demon. It can also be used when watching back VOD to determine how many ticks pass, to determine how many ticks between actions, or how long does X action take to proc over duration of an attack or phase, etc, etc. Lastly, inventory tags. Now, before you banish me to the Shoutout round, some items are hard to distinguish between certain states, such as an empty and full trident, for example. I have an inventory tag on my Sang Staff only when it's empty as a reminder to refill it before Vanguards, or for kegs, just to know which kegs are empty and which are full. But that's about it for all the useful PvM plugins. Before I call it though, the plugin that lets me walk funny is the Weapon Gear Animation plugin by Gahur, which lets you swap out animations or gear only for your eyes. Also, I have a quick public service announcement before I end the video. Mr. Opiez, please take it away.
Yo, this is a public server announcement to Hezbollah. Public server announcement, just for you. For the whole motherfucking crew.
Thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned about some new handy dandy plugin that before you had no clue about. In the future, I may make a follow-up when more plugins come out, but until then, hope you guys enjoyed. If you did enjoy this video, then feel free to drop a like, and if you want to see whenever I upload more videos, make sure to drop a subscribe.